Joining me now is Mark Mahaney, Evercore's head of internet research. Mark covers a number of key travel stocks, including Airbnb and Expedia. Airbnb off today, and I mentioned some of those vacation rentals in the hotspots. Where this is high season, they would normally have 100% occupancy, but if the national parks are closed, you have to question what's the immediate impact, Mark.
You're right, Contessa. The numbers you mentioned, especially that billion a week in hit to the travel industry with with the government shutdown, that'll add up. That'll start impacting some of these businesses. The companies that I look at, kind of the online travel agencies, some of the advantages they have, Booking in particular, Booking.com, Booking Holdings, is that 85% of their bookings are actually outside the U.S. So it's a true global player, so they'll be less impacted. Expedia and Airbnb both, though, are doing 50% plus of their bookings in the U.S. So over time, the longer the shutdown stays in effect, the more of an impact they're likely to see. Maybe not directly because of reduction in government travel, but it will trickle into consumer sentiment and consumer uncertainty. And then, maybe it'd be a better time to travel when the government's back in operation. You don't have to worry about things going wrong during your flight.
The interesting part of that is where there is a bigger international, let's call it a hedge in this case. We've already seen that with Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt. And I know that those are names that you don't cover, but just so that the audience knows, they have said, for instance, a big 10% drop in Canadian visitation earlier this year for them was highly irrelevant because those Canadians were still traveling. They were just bypassing the United States and going to Mexico or the Caribbean or other places like that. The same goes for Airbnb. They might see the consumers in other places still traveling, regardless of whether there's a government shutdown and the like. It's interesting when we're talking about these companies because they are truly employing AI in a way that if the conventional wisdom says, oh, ChatGPT could put Expedia out of business, Ariane Gorin, the CEO, sat with me and said, oh, no, not so fast. We're using AI to make our customers feel more special, to feel more connected. And when we're focused on this B2B business, we think there's more opportunity because we're using AI to our advantage. Do you like what you see?
I think that Ariane's logic actually largely holds. Look, it's going to be dependent. It's going to be dependent upon whether companies like Booking, Expedia, and Airbnb deploy AI to come up with their own travel agentic commerce options. We did a study on this about 2 months ago. We looked at things like we looked at OpenAI's project. We looked at Romy, which is the Expedia offering, and Penny, which is the Priceline offering. And I'm not sure any of them are really ready for prime time. But of those three, the one I thought was most ready for prime time was Romy, the Expedia product. Travel is a very considered purchase. I mean, people will spend 3-5 hours a year planning their summer vacations because they're extremely important to most families. To all families, they are. And you want to make sure the flights are right, the hotels right, the rental cars right, et cetera. It can be a very information-intensive transaction. It's a wonderful play here for AI. And if these companies use AI to make that service better for their customers, I think they'll actually end up being big winners. There's also the other side, which is that it's not just knowing what all the hotels are in the Florida Keys, but knowing which has availability the third week in November and at what price. And you only get that if you're wired up with those hotels. That's what the advantage that Booking has and Expedia and an Airbnb would have. And I'm not sure OpenAI wants to go in that direction. I think they'll just take the Google direction and just generate the ad revenue from those types of companies. So I think Expedia. Yeah.
It's clear investors like what they see, though. Over 6 months here, Expedia is up almost 30%. It's way outpacing, by the way, the share increases of Booking up 15% same time frame and TripAdvisor up 10%. What's interesting is Brian Chesky said at a conference I was at a couple weeks ago, AI is both an existential threat and an opportunity. Is there going to be a bifurcation in terms of scale about the big companies having the means to employ? I mean, Airbnb is using an internal AI engine based off of their gold standard customer interactions so that their customers feel seen, heard, and are delivered recommendations that really suit individuals, not just these bland marketing and promotions.
I think there'll be a bifurcation if companies don't effectively deploy AI. This is a real opportunity for companies. They have enormous amounts of data. So if they deploy AI, use that data to create a better consumer experience, I think there'll be AI winners. So it's really incumbent on them. It's incumbent on Booking, Airbnb, and Expedia to deploy AI. You mentioned the outperformance of Expedia. Actually, thanks for bringing it up. Expedia is one of our top picks for the year. It's kind of a contrarian call on our part, but part of it is it's darn cheap. This thing still trades well under a market multiple, 13, 14 times earnings. You have new management in place. If they are better executors, and you can see the growth rates between them and the industry leaders, Booking and Airbnb, they have been converging. If that convergence continues, the valuation convergence is going to continue too. And the best way to play that, I think, is to be long Expedia. That's one of the reasons why it's one of our top picks.